Hey, welcome everyone to our live stream. This is Ned from Caspio. You guys know the drill. Before I begin, I just want to make sure our audio is working correctly so that we can begin with today's content and presentation. So do me a favor, let me know in the chat window that you can hear me okay, and we can go ahead and begin. All good? Hey, Damien, good to see you. Lucas, welcome back. Great, loud and clear, awesome. So we have something a little bit different today for the live stream. As you can see, I have prepared a few slides to introduce Caspio Directories. Because Caspio Directories is such a big part of your account and the way we authenticate application users, I thought that it would be beneficial to summarize a lot of the capabilities of Caspio Directories in just a few slides, and then we can get into our demo the way we normally do week after week. So let's go ahead and begin. Caspio Directories is a huge improvement to the way we authenticate application users in terms of security. So you'll see enhanced security across all of your applications, which includes the entire user lifecycle management. From the moment that the user is added inside a directory, you're going to be able to see who is active, who is inactive, who needs to have their password reset, who's deactivated. In addition to that, we have security policy governance, which includes two-factor authentication. It also has a lot of password security policies. And many of these features come standard within an identity provider or IDP. And it's no different with Caspio's now built-in IDP. All of these features are provided and come standard. And lastly, we have the application access control, which allows you to manage all of your users or application users inside a directory to make them active, inactive, delete their account, and everything is all through seamless, guided, and intuitive experience for your application user. And also, you don't have to build that reset data page anymore. That's all part of the guided interface with directories, the way your application users are going to access all of your Caspio-powered applications. So moving on, let's take a look at this diagram and let's break down the workflow. I thought I would make it easy to visualize in terms of how Caspio IDP works inside your Caspio account. So if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you see known identities. Known identities are basically the end users or application users that are stored inside your tables. And depending on the use case, you might have external users, you might have internal users, or you might have a combination of both, depending on the use case. So that's broken down maybe into employees table, customers, partners, depending on the use case. In the middle, you see the Caspio IDP, or identity provider. And your Caspio IDP can be comprised of one or many directories, depending on the use case and how many applications you have in your account. And each directory will have unlimited application users. So our IDP provides unlimited application users. There are many IDPs that require different products and also charge per user for different identities. Caspio gives you everything out of the box all in one. And then with the directories, they're going to be used to log into your Caspio-powered applications, which you see in the upper right corner. So if you have a CRM or a knowledge base type application, anybody inside that directory is going to be able to log in to view the data. In the bottom right corner, you can see third-party app connections. So your directories can be used to log into external applications such as Zoom, DocuSign, Slack, or Salesforce. And then in the bottom left-hand corner of my screen, you will see external IDPs. So if your organization is using, let's say, Microsoft Active Directory or Azure AD or Okta, you can integrate those external IDPs with your Caspio directories and allow your employees from your organization to log into your Caspio-powered applications. So you can use an external IDP, you can use a Caspio IDP, depending on which preference you have. So it is powerful and flexible out of the box. It's very powerful for administrators. You can create groups to organize your application users. It's fast, you don't have to set anything up, and everything is managed within one centralized environment. It's seamless for your application users, so everything is through a guided experience. So even if you enable two-factor authentication, your application user will know exactly what to do, and you'll see in just a moment what that looks like. And it's an intuitive process. There's really nothing that the application user needs to do. They don't have to contact you every time. It's all built in inside that guided environment. And there's security at scale. So we have SAML 2.0 standards, enforced governance, and as always, Caspio gives you unlimited application users. And just to quickly summarize the availability of Caspio Directories, which is still in beta, by the way, you will see that unlimited application users across all of your accounts, how many directories are given per account. You can see self-service user portal and security policies such as two-factor authentication is available across the board. And depending on your account, we have app connections and also identity providers. So now let me go ahead and go through a quick demo so that you can see what it looks like. And I'm also going to point out what to expect when using Caspio Directories versus how we normally build our authentications today. Okay, so let's go ahead and close that really quickly. Just bear with me for a second. All right, so we have a login screen created by Caspio Directories. Today, we don't have a lot of flexibility in terms of how we customize the look and feel of the login screen. I'm going to point out a few. For example, you're going to be able to change out the logo to something else. You can also have helpful links underneath the login screen to allow the user to be redirected to maybe a support page, or if you have a privacy statement or terms of use, I'll point everything out. As I mentioned just a moment ago, what to expect. So if you were hoping to have a custom login screen embedded into your own web page with your own design, today you're not going to get that with directories. Okay, but if you do that, then you're not going to be able to take advantage of all the security enhancements such as two-factor authentication and also password security policies. So let's go ahead and log in very quickly so that you can see the workflow. So I'm going to log in as my email address. Here, we're going to hit continue. And then my password is saved. And you can see how the forgot password is actually built into the workflow. So you don't have to build that anymore using a data page. It's all provided for you with Caspio Directories. We'll sign in. And as soon as I sign in, I'm able to see my data pages. Let's log out. And the moment I log out, it's once again going to take me back into that login interface. So now I'm going to point out how we can modify some of the features here on the login screen if that's something that you have a need for. So inside my account, we're going to go to Directories. And this is the one that I've set up for today's demo. We're going to open it. And the first thing that we'll mention is the user portal. So as I mentioned just a moment ago, you have some flexibility in terms of how you design the experience, the login experience. So if you click on the edit link, you're going to be able to swap the logo with something else. You can also change the display name. Display name is the text that you see up here, your account. So if I just change that to something else, account, you will see in just a moment what that looks like. We're going to hit save. If you scroll down, you have a footer section. So if I click edit, I can provide some helpful links to my application users. So I can enable support contact. And if I just type something random here, support.com, let's also have terms of use. So HTTPS, terms.com, and these are just arbitrary links, and HTTPS, privacy.com. And we're going to hit save. So now with those changes that are saved inside my Caspio Directories, if I reload my browser, you'll be able to see those three links. And you can also see how I modified that display text. Now let's see how we can quickly enable two-factor authentication on the login screen. So inside Directories, if you click on the Security tab, and you click on the Edit link, I can very quickly enable two-factor authentication either for a single user that's logging in or across all of the users. So let's enforce that across every single user inside the directory and click Save. And now what's going to happen on the login screen, let me just refresh. As soon as I try to log in and hit Continue, we put our password in. And now you have to set up two-factor authentication. So it's really that easy with just a simple click. Now, if you have a Google Authenticator app on your phone and you scan this code, you're going to get a random ID back on your phone that you plug in on the subsequent screen when you hit continue. which I'm not going to demonstrate because it's really hard to demonstrate using my phone here and scanning it. But just remember that if you hit continue, you're going to plug in the ID on the following screen, and then you're going to be able to log in and see those 2 data pages. Okay, so let me disable that. Okay, and hit save. Okay, so with groups allow you to, for now, groups allow you to organize your application users. So if you have different departments, let's say for your directory, so if I create a group, let's call this group admin, and hit create. And let's say we have another one of maybe managers, hit create. And if we, let's say we open up the admin group, I can add a user. And right now I only have 2 users inside my directory. I have myself and I have a fictitious user called Ken Lee. So if I know that Ned is an admin level user, I can select him and I can add him to this group. The way you manage permissions inside directories is not controlled by directories. It's actually still controlled the same way as today. You have to go into your table and you have to create the role field. And then using the views, we can filter out who is a manager level user, who is the admin level user. In the future, that's all going to be part of Caspio Directories, but for now, it's still managed the same way as before. So when you create the directory inside Caspio, essentially what you're creating is the table. Okay, we just have to know how to locate that table. I'm going to explain that next. So let's come back here to the home page. And this is my demo that we just looked at. And we're going to work on this one today. So it's just a simple container. We're going to open it. And you will see I have created 2 data pages. And I have deployed my 2 data pages right over here. But they're not password protected just yet. So if I refresh the screen, you will once again see those 2 same data pages. So now how could we apply the directory on top of these 2 data pages? You will see that I don't have any views created. And I don't have any authentications created yet. So back on the home page, we're going to click on directories. And I'm just going to create a brand new one. So create a directory. And let's call this demo employees live, so it has a different name than my example that we just looked at. You can also convert the existing table into a directory. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Okay, but for now, let's set up a brand new one. We're going to hit create. And you can immediately add a user to your directory. I'm going to add myself inside this directory, okay, so that we can have a sample user who can log in. So we hit create, and we're going to use my email address. And then you have some optional fields that you can expand and collapse if you'd like. And for the sign-in method, we're going to use the Caspio IDP. We have other videos in our knowledge base that explain how you can connect an external IDP and then use that in the dropdown if you'd like. But for now, we're going to simply stick with Caspio's IDP, and I'm going to activate myself by sending myself an email with the activation link. Okay, so that's how I'm going to activate my account. We're going to hit create. And there's the user. You can see it's pending user activation. So let me open up my email so that you can see what that looks like. Just bear with me for a second while I bring that into the screen. And there's the email that just came in. Again, you can change the logo to something else. We're going to activate the account now. And I need to set my password. So I'm just going to create a very quick password here. Okay. It just needs to be secure enough. Activate. Okay, so now as the application user, I have activated my account and I can now log in. But what's happening here in the directories, if you reload the screen, or refresh the screen, you're going to be able to see now how Ned is an active user inside the directories because I activated my account using that activation link. Now, essentially, this is a table. So when you create a directory, that table is located inside the all assets container. I just need everybody to know that, right? So when you create that directory is actually now located here in the all assets container. But you can quickly access the table and design. If I go back here to directories, and I open it, if you click on the datasheet view, let's say this directory, you need to have a role field. So you click on the data sheet view to access the table and data. If I go to table design, now I can add my role field to that directory. Okay? Because sometimes inside that user table, you might have employees, you might have admins, you might have supervisors, etc. You no longer need to create the account login checkbox to make users active or inactive. Now that is handled by Caspio Directories. Okay, so if you need to suspend the account, if you need to deactivate or delete a user, you no longer need to do that on the table level. You handle all of that inside directories. So once you add a role field, you can save it, go to your datasheet view, and then you can specify if Ned's going to be an admin level user. Let me just fill in the first name and last name because I didn't fill out those optional fields inside directories. That's why it's empty. And then let's say maybe you have Susan Lee at Caspio.com, and we can make her the supervisor. And maybe one more. Let's say we have Ken Jones at Caspio.com, and we make Ken Jones be the employee. Okay, and you save it. Once you go inside a datasheet view, keep in mind that you're inside the all assets container. So what you want to do is navigate back to your applications and open up that application. And now you can create the views based on that directory that you just set up, which is employees_live. So when you set up the view, same way as before, you create the view. And let's start off with maybe live filter active admin. Okay, so here is my, give me a second. I'm trying to find that directory. It's actually down here. What do we call it? Demo? Here it is. So there's my directory. So same as before. You can use that directory or a table inside the view to filter out who's active and who's not active. So we select that directory to the right, we hit next, and then this is the same as before. You move over your field and you select the role field. And since we're filtering admin, I'm going to type in admin here. Again, you don't need that checkbox to active or inactive. Now that is handled inside directories separately. So we hit finish to save. And here's my view that's filtering active admins. Now you can go about creating the second two views, which are filtering active supervisors and active employees. We're not going to do that. We're going to go to authentications, and very quickly we're going to set up the authentication based on that view that we just created, which was this one here. And we're going to select directory. Okay, and the email. One thing that I will point out here is in the advanced settings, you have a checkbox here that reads auto redirect to directories login screen. I very much recommend that you enable this checkbox if you're using the embed deployment method. Okay, and you'll see what that looks like in just a second. I'm going to uncheck this for now and hit create. And let's call this live admin authentication and hit finish. And all I'm going to do now is apply that authentication back to my two data pages. So edit, restrict access to that one. And we're going to edit the second one, restrict access, and hit finish. And now when we reload the page, you're going to be able to see two login buttons. Okay? If you had one data page deployed on that web page, you would see a single login button. And what's going to happen now is when you click on that button, it's going to bring up this directory login screen for you to sign in. However, both of my data pages are embedded into my web page. And if I select that checkbox to auto redirect, let's see what happens. So back inside the authentication, edit, expand the advanced settings, save. And now you're going to be able to see a completely different experience. It's going to bring up that directory login screen, okay, which is full screen. And as soon as I log in, so let's try to log in now as Ned. You can also choose to remember me. I'm not going to do that. Let's hit continue. And then my password, let me make sure I type the right password in. Sign in. And I should be able to see both of those data pages. Okay, let me take a look at my YouTube live chat to see if there are any questions coming in. I had my email covering it. Yeah, let's pause here for a second to see if anybody has any questions. I'm going to point out some things to expect now with directories. If you're building a software as a service type application or SaaS application, keep in mind that if you're building that public-facing registration form, we don't have a way to automatically activate the user. Okay, so if you are planning on building a public-facing registration form, which will be part of directories in the future, okay, it's all going to be built in. I still recommend that you build your application the current method, okay, which is using the table and not the directory. Why do I say that? Well, let me come over here to my data page. Sorry, to my table. And let's take a look at this table here. So if you're trying to, let's say you built a public-facing registration form on top of this table, and you're feeding data into this table. There's no way to now automatically make that user active or inactive. Again, as I said, you don't need that checkbox in here anymore because it's not going to interface with your Caspio directories. It's handled separately. Okay? So that's the point I wanted to drive across, is that if you're building a SaaS type, consumer-based type application, I don't recommend using directories for that type of a use case. So you can use the old method, but if you have internal users, then yes, you can leverage and take advantage of directories that way. Another thing that I want to point out, if you're building an internal application, remember how on the front end we can build some data pages to manage our end user or application users. So you might have a data page that lists all of your employees, and then you can change their password. You can also make them active or inactive. You can also add a new user. So for those two data pages, if you're building an internal application, if you have a need for those two data pages, then I recommend that you build it the old method as well, right? Because inside a table, you can see there's no password field, and we don't have that account login checkbox. So you can't really manage that on the data page. Okay, so what you'll have to do is have somebody log into Caspio, go to directories, and manage all of your users directly from here. So if you open up the directory, you can add the user. And when you expand the optional fields, we now have that role field added inside directories as well. So if I add a new user directly from here, I can specify the role, and I can activate the user and choose how I want their account to be activated, either by sending an email or generating a password. In addition, let's come back to the home page and open up that live demo that we created. As soon as you create the view, which I did, that directory that's initially located in the all assets container is automatically added to your tables. Okay, so here is my table that we created as a directory. Okay, so just know that when you set up your directory, it's a table, but initially it's located in the all assets container. That's where it's stored. Okay, but when you set up the view and link that view to your directory, then that table is automatically added to your tables object, and you're going to be able to easily find it. Okay. The capabilities of Caspio Directories are really helpful in terms of security. So if you have a need for security with two-factor authentication, password security policies, so let's go into our directories once again. Let's open it. And very quickly, we talked about two-factor authentication that you can quickly enable, but you also have security policies with the password field. So if you edit, you can have failed sign-in attempts allowed before the account is locked. So if you fail to log in 3 different times with your password, your credentials, you're going to be automatically locked out. And then the admin level user has to reset your account. We still have minimum password length. That's still there. We have number of previous passwords restricted from use, which means that if you already used those same passwords before, you cannot use those passwords again. And you can move this slider if you'd like to have more passwords restricted from use. You can enforce password expiration. So with directories, let's say 30 days go by. The application user will be forced to reset their own password. And you can say 30 days, they need to change the password to something else so they can log into the application again. You can also send an email reminder. Let's say you set this to 5. Now, 5 days before the 30th day expires, you send an email for them to reset the password so once again they're able to log in to the application. Okay? Let me know if there are any questions. Hopefully I'm explaining this easy enough for you guys to digest. There are some things, like I said, to expect if you plan on using directories, which is great for security enhancement. But if you're building a SaaS type application and you have a need for that public registration form, I still recommend that you build it the old method, the way we currently do today. But eventually that will be part of Caspio Directories. All right, so the last thing that I wanted to cover is converting the existing table into a Caspio directory. So what I mean by that is when you go to directories and you set up a new one, you can select convert existing table into a directory. All right, so let me explain this. Let me go back to the home page and let's go inside. I believe I have my table here. Let me take a look. No, not that one, the other one, live. So let's imagine this table here is our current table used for our application. Okay, and inside that table, you're going to have your application users with their credentials, and you have that account status checkbox to make users active or inactive. Okay. When you convert the table into a directory, you're not going to be able to bring this column into your directory. Okay, it'll be completely stripped. All right. But when you convert this table into a directory, you're going to get the option to either make all of your end users or application users active or inactive, one or the other. Now, that could cause some problems because, you know, if I make everyone active, now my inactive users are going to be able to log into my application, and I don't want that. On the flip side, if I make everyone inactive, then my active users inside my table will not be able to log in. Okay, so how do we bypass that? How do we circumvent? So my recommendation is to make a copy of your table, especially if you're doing your testing initially. Don't convert this table into a directory because there's no way of going back. You cannot revert back. So if you, maybe by mistake, or if you were just kind of poking around, wanting to see what the user experience is like with directories, once you convert this table into a directory, again, there's no going back. So my recommendation is just to make a copy of it, and you can say maybe test. Let's just shorten this a little bit. But in the future, we are going to allow you to revert back to your original table. So let's say we have table and data. We're going to duplicate, make a copy of it. So here is the copy of my main user table. Now I recommend that you create your directory based on the copied table so that you don't affect your existing application and you don't make some detrimental changes that's going to affect the way your current application functions. So once you make a copy of your table, then inside directories, when you set up a new one, let's just call this converting user table to directories. And of course, I should have remembered my table name. So let me come back and give me a second. I forgot my table name, what I called it. Live tables. I called it demo convert table test. So demo convert. So let's look for demo convert table. So here's the test. And what you need to do now is map out your fields. Okay. So you select the email to email. User ID has to be created, GUID. First name to first name, last name to last name, and password to password. And here's the checkbox down here that allows you to make everyone from that table active, which means even your previously inactive employees will be able to log in once this is configured. So that's why I suggest make a copy of your table first so that your application that's in production or live doesn't get affected by this. So you can choose to make everyone active. I would imagine that most users in your table will be active, and maybe a few will be inactive. So make everyone active if you like. Hit convert. All right, conversion successful. And they're all active. The password you see status password expired because it's using the new password policy from directories. They will need to now, when they log in with their email, they'll have to create their own password to log in. Okay. Let me have a look here really quickly to make sure I've covered everything here. We have everyone converted. Now the next step would be, since you have the employee, you have the role field from that original table, what I would do next is inside that application is go to views and set up the new view, okay, without the checkbox to make users active or inactive. So I will set up my views. You will have your original views in here listed, okay? Don't tamper with that. So just set up your new view and just have the right naming convention so it doesn't get too confusing, okay? So you could say demo active employees. And for my directory that I converted, it's actually this one here. So we move that to the right. And then in the criteria tab, you're going to move the field element, and then you're going to select the role field, and you want to maybe filter out employees. Okay. So now you have the same view, but it's built off of the directory. It's still not affecting your existing application. Okay, we haven't touched any of our current tables, any of our authentications, nothing, okay? We just set up a new one, and then I will set up the authentication for that view that we just created. So set up this. So let's call this, first we select the data source, and my data source is going to be this one here, custom directory. And again, you can expand the advanced settings and choose this option if you're embedding your data pages. Hit create, demo, employee auth. And only now do I recommend that you apply this authentication to your existing or in production data page, or make a copy of that data page, apply it so that you can see what it looks like. And that's how I would recommend that you convert your existing user table into a directory. Okay. If you want to take it step by step to make sure everything is connected correctly and works properly, that's the way that I would do it. Because now if you decide not to use directories anymore, you can simply delete these objects and still maintain and switch back to your old authentication that you had back to your data pages. Okay. You don't have to do it this way. If you want to immediately make everyone active or inactive, it's up to you. But personally, just to be careful, I would do it this way so that I make sure nothing fails and nothing gets disrupted in terms of my live application. Because once you convert that table to a directory, you make everyone active, it's going to take effect right away on the web. Okay, and even those users that were inactive in the past could, technically log in because they've been made active. Unless you quickly go inside your directory, which you could. Let's say you only have a few people who are inactive. You can go inside your directory, and you can very quickly open that user's account. And up here, you can suspend their account so they don't log in. Okay. But lots and lots of capabilities and benefits with Caspio Directories. With two-factor authentication, security policy with the password, and restricting old passwords from being used. User portal, which you can modify. The login experience. We are going to make enhancements to the login experience in the upcoming releases, in addition to being able to change. So let me come back here so you know what I'm talking about. So let's log out. In addition to being able to change the background color, okay, to match your own corporate identity or the brand of your organization. But yeah, those are some things to expect. Hopefully I explained that correctly. You have to outweigh the pros and the cons, right? In terms of what your application or what your use case needs to have and which way you want to go about it. If you're keen on having all the security benefits and security capabilities of Caspio Directories, then I definitely recommend using Caspio's IDP, because now you can have two-factor authentication on your applications. Again, as I mentioned, you have a lot of those security policies with the password. You don't have to create that reset password data page anymore. However, on the flip side, if you are still building that public consumer-based application where you need that public registration form, then I would recommend using the current method until that's available inside directories. Also, if you need your login screen, as I mentioned before, to be part of your own template, where you customize the look and feel of the login experience, the login button, the field width, everything else around a login screen, then yeah, you might still want to use the old method of authenticating. Okay. Let me take a look at my question. So for previous inactive employees, do I just need to suspend them in the converted? Yes. So you would just suspend their account. That's correct. It's a good question. And the last thing that I mentioned, remember, if you have data pages on the front end that you use to manage all of your application users in the table, right? So add a new user, manage their email, manage their password, and you plan on using directories, you're not going to be able to build those two data pages anymore. Okay? And you don't have to build those two data pages anymore, because now you just need to have somebody log into Caspio and manage all the application users inside directories. Because in that directory, you don't have access to the password field, and you no longer make users active or inactive inside the table itself. You do everything inside directories. But when you create a directory, essentially it's a table. Initially, it's located in the all assets container. Okay, you just have to now build a view to move that directory into your application. Set up your roles the way you normally do based on that directory by creating the views, and then you set up your authentications on top of the views and apply the authentication back to your data pages. And that's all I had for you today. So hopefully you enjoyed today's class. I hope that I was able to clarify and answer some questions from setting up a brand new application to creating roles. Let me take a look at the question, how to handle users who have multiple roles. So it's the same way as before, right? So let's say one user can be an admin, one user can be a manager, one user can be a supervisor, or if you have one user who's also admin and a manager, import and append records from access to directories. So if we think about it theoretically, if you set up that directory, which essentially it's a table, that's actually a very good question. I haven't tried that yet. So can we import data to that directory or to that table now? Theoretically, it sounds possible, but we have people here from Caspio who might be able to handle that question a little bit better than me. I don't see why not. If you have data in Excel or Access database and you want to append your application user data to that directory, I don't see why not. I think that's something that's possible. But hopefully somebody else can chime in and help answer that question for CHC. Okay, thank you, Michael. Thank you for that. How to handle users who have multiple roles. Right. So with that, let me just think for a second how I would go about it, because now I have to think in terms of directories a little bit. We have the role field. Yeah, I would simply set up a view of users that have both admin level rights and maybe employee level rights. So for example, if we look at my application here, which has two views, we have just the admin only and just the manager. I have to set up a new view here. Sorry. So let's say call this demo filter all, and then there are two ways of setting that up from the employee directory. You can either, since we only have two different user types, we have admins and employees. You don't really have to do anything. You just set up the view, and it's going to filter everyone inside that view. Okay, but you can also, if you have 3 or 4 different permission types, you could actually have it be set this to OR, and then you can say role equal to admin or role equal to employee. And then these users will have access as both the admin and the employees. Thanks, Michal. So it looks like when you do import that data into your table or directory, initially the imported users will be inactive, listed as inactive. Same person with multiple roles. let's see. On a single user, you might have to have somewhat more of a complex structure than with just one user having multiple roles, where you have to single out that user in a view. But in this case, we would have a group of users who have both admin level rights and employee level rights, who would be listed here. But if you kind of working backwards here, so if you just need one user to have access to roles compared to everyone else, it's not a group of users, then you might need to just set up another field here to filter out just that specific user who has the admin and employee level rights. I think that's the way I would go about it. I might have to take that question offline, unfortunately, but hopefully I'm understanding the question. If you want to send me an email, please do so. I will respond back today, okay? Just send me an email with that same question so that we can take this conversation offline, and then I can put together some scenarios for you in terms of how that can be done. Okay? Good question there, okay? So let's see. So Michal, are you saying that we can import and then both update and append current records that would make the user updated and appended inactive? Okay, show me your table. That would be very helpful for me. Since I'm a visual learner, I can look at something very quickly and know exactly what to do. But let me know in the chat window as well if I helped answer some of the questions that you had with directories. Hopefully, I've outlined what to expect, what to look out for if you do decide to use directories compared to the current method that we use today. Because there are advantages to both, right? You just have to kind of, based on your use case, decide for yourself which direction you want to go with. Eventually, we obviously want you to use directories because of all the security enhancements and being able to manage all of your application users from one centralized interface. But because we don't have the ability for that public registration form to make users automatically active, it's a bit of a limitation, but that's going to be part of directories very soon. So if you update existing users with import process, it will not affect user status. Only new users are imported or inactive. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, Michal. Yeah, so I've officially covered off all the content for today's live stream in terms of directories. If you want to learn more about external IDPs and app connections, we do have videos available in our knowledge base to talk about that. So if I open up this directory, if you want to learn more about identity providers, I have a video that connects Azure AD, and I also have a video that connects to Slack. Detailed video, step-by-step guide that shows you how. Thank you, Stability. Yeah, let me know if there's still any questions that I can help with. Thank you all for attending. I appreciate your time. And hopefully we'll see you again on Monday next week with more Caspio content. Well, actually, let me take a look. I don't want to speak too fast. We don't actually have the live stream next week. We're going to be off that week. So we're going to come back not on the 2nd, but the following week, which will be the 9th. So that's going to be our next Caspio live session. Caspio, we're off this week. And then we're not going to be doing a live stream because we come back for New Year's. And then on the 9th, we're going to have our next Caspio live. Hey, King Capo. Yeah, Messi the GOAT. Yeah, I'm happy to. Well, I mean, that's just me. I was happy to see Argentina win the final. You know, if you're attending this Caspio live from France, I apologize. Don't take it personal. It's just. Well, I was hoping. I'm a big fan of Lionel Messi, so I really wanted him to see and cap off his career with that World Cup. Thank you, Michal. Hey, Phil. Good to see you as well. Jojo, hey. Good to see you. Thanks, Jacob. Lucas, thank you so much. Perfect. Well, I'm happy that I was able to answer questions. I'm going to close the live stream at this point. We're going to keep the chat running for a little bit more. If you want to give us suggestions for the live stream, please do so in the chat window. Let us know what you would like to see, and I will definitely bring that into our Caspio Live. Since I'm not going to see you, happy holidays to you, happy New Year, and then we'll see you next year in 2023. We don't actually have the next topic yet, so keep an eye out for that either today or tomorrow. We're going to come up with the next topic for the 9th. And if you have a suggestion, let me know. Maybe we bring that into the live stream on the 9th. Thanks, Stephen. Happy holidays. All right. Thank you all.